Hello and welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 5 o'clock. It is happy hour. We are finally off the clock and on the D&D. I am Lantern Noir, one of the two hosts of the show, and I'm joined by the amazing
Graybeard of Graybeard's Tavern, and follow my Twitter when you can. There, I've put my bid in. Today we're going to be talking about
Sandboxes versus roller coasters. And this is episode 9 of our show, Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern. We have since upgraded to a full podcast. At the top of the show, I'll mention if you have feedback, questions, comments, or show ideas, you can send us an email to theoldtimertavern@gmail.com. And you can always get in touch with us there. I'm gonna double check to make sure it's not Old Timer Tavern because I forget. Hey, Crimson Howland, welcome to the show and the community. It is oldtimertavern@gmail.com. No the.
Woohoo.
But we have an email address for feedback. You can also directly on anchor.fm leave us voicemails, which, if appropriate, we can play during the show.
if appropriate.
Well, we gotta qualify these things because you never know what's going on out there. So great. How has your week been? What's been the latest before we get into the big topic? What's the happenings?
So happenstance. What games did we play? We did Masks. How was it? Thursday over on Indoor Adventures. I'm enjoying. I did not get to do a big reveal of a bad name, which is my character's MO this week. We did a lot of the high school angsty stuff, so I never got to change into have my Shazam moment with bad names. So that's all right though. I just keep the list, and we're only supposed to have 10 episodes, so maybe I won't have a real name until the end of the series. Like the final episode will have a decent name. So they're all like Roman words for shield or protection or guard or something, but none of them are the ones that you would expect, like Centurion, Praetorian, none of that. They're all like Pelto or Custus, the weird buckler names and stuff. And so we'll see how that pans out. But so that was Thursday. And then Sunday.
Agus feels like it's I recognize Agus.
Yeah, Aegis. But again, too, some of them are like are already like superheroes in one of or the other comics universes. So yeah, I've been trying to dodge that. Then Friday nada. Saturday, I took Saturday off because I did something on Friday night with some other friends. I got to play Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time with multiplayer. So that was a good time. We did an all dwarf party, and so we're all dwarves, and we walk around and we're all tough, and it's hilarious. And then beautiful game. Sometime we'll have to talk about video games, and that's a thing. So I took Saturday night off. I had to work during Saturday during the day, and then it was a nightmare. And then Sunday, of course, Grifflands. We did Grifflands again, and I got to play with my toys and shoot aliens and fight and be a grifter. And the current storyline we're in is the character Rook, and he works both sides of this conflict that's happening in the world, and so he's like a double, triple agent for everyone, and I do an adventurer's voice for him. So it's he's a lot of fun. And then back to here.
Nice.
Tuesday.
Sounds like a great live. And dwarves can be great fun. I think it has to do with what fantasy novels you came in on. because I came in on the Dragonland series, so I've always had a soft spot for halflings,
Yeah.
not hobbits,
Right.
halflings. And so that's been like my go-to. And I remember when I think was it 3 that rolled it out, or 3.5 finally said you can be whatever you want for a race class combo, and I'm like, every campaign needs a halfling paladin.
There it is.
There we go.
We particularly since they added skills instead of like it being a splat book, the skills and powers from like late second edition.
Yeah.
When 3 and 3.5 popped up, they just you had skills and skill points, and we had a buddy of mine who went affectionately by Yamez. He he made a halfling paladin, and all his skill points went into intimidation. It was all about the intimidation. And so he was this halfling paladin, rode a dog, and just would get in people's faces constantly, and it was just ridiculous, like plus 13 to intimidation. So
The sheer beauty of the cinematography necessary to pull off a scene where a halfling stares down like an orc and it works.
Right.
It's like just thinking of how you would frame that shot to actually make the audience buy it, because that's what the dice said had to happen. So now it's in the script.
Yes.
Now what? Halflings and halflings and dwarves do tend to have a very good sense of bringing in family. They're great. They've always been handled really well, which I'd like to see them continuing to do. For me, Sunday night this past week was another episode of Mists of Ever Twilight, my homebrew Ravenloft game, and the party is starting to get a little annoyed with me because they're coming across too many corrupt people in too many bad situations and too many gray lines.
Oh, it's Ravenloft,
and
it is a gray world.
Their greatest problem right now that they're facing is they found a necromancer. They want to bring her to justice, and they've discovered that because the town has no overarching government, it's all run by factions and gangs, that each gang is its own judicial system. So the only way for her to face justice for having created these zombies is to convince the gang in the territory where the zombies were that they should do something with her. And they're not likely to, because they barely knew she was there. So they don't really have a big beef with it yet. In fact, they'd be better served to go, hey, if you want to be a scurvy, we can fit you with an eye patch, and you can make zombies for us.
For us, exactly. We'll take this town.
And they haven't quite figured out, the players haven't quite put that together yet as a possible outcome if they're not careful. They were a little angry about that by the end of the session, which is, it ended well. They got to kill a bunch of gang people that were being douche canoes. So it ended on a positive combat that they melted a lot of faces. Monday night we did a Sherlock Holmes mystery again. We scored 40 out of 100, which I thought was amazing.
Considering some of your prior games, yes.
We still talk about the score of 7 out of a possible 100 from several sessions back. And then tomorrow night I'm having session 0 of my Candlekeep game.
That's already starting. Oh my goodness. It is March, isn't it?
It is, and I'm a little bit terrified because I'm a little intimidated. I know I've got some really great role players coming on, some great streamers, actually, great personalities.
Yeah.
So I have to keep up with them. And I've got some interest from other people. And I'm going to be polite here, but I'm going to put this thought out there. I have to do this. When you kind of put out into the world, I'm going to be running a stream game. I don't care if you have a lot of D&D experience, but please come with some experience with streaming content. When you show interest, it would really help if you don't say, I've never streamed before, I'm not sure what that entails.
Yeah.
Like, I feel really bad because it's like, I don't know what to do with that response.
Right.
Because I can teach anybody D&D, but I just don't want to have to do a lot of other stuff like cameras and knowing that there's a chat room and
the guys the grognards that are my college buddies, it was pulling teeth to set them up on Discord so we could play together on, because I tried to set them up on Roll20. Unfortunately, two of them are like Luddites, and one of them has like the tech level of I have to set up my phone to be a hotspot so that I can get my laptop to have it, internet.
Yeah.
So,
and in defense, I think Roll20, for all the power behind it, it is a super user platform. It is not really for the casual D&D'er. Well, this is what happened to me Saturday night. I wrapped up my stream. Eric, who's often in here in the chat, either here for when I game, mentioned he was going to be running a game at his community college where he teaches. And I said, okay, if you're going to run a game, let me give you a couple of quick resources. An hour later, I finally wrapped up. And it was like, holy crap, I had a lot of stuff to share.
Yeah.
But there's so much stuff that kind of like it goes into getting the hang of being online, and I don't know, Roll20 is kind of heavy. D&D Beyond is my that's where you need to be.
Yep.
If you can get D&D Beyond to work, everything else I can do on my end. We can all share with everybody. It works really well.
Yeah, do like a Zoom call or a Discord chat, and so you've got voice. Is it about the game? Did he answer?
Oh yes, the drinking game. It's a hot potato, but the potato is replaced by a fuzzy cave spider.
Nice.
The first dwarf to get bitten and paralyzed loses because poison resistance needs to be exploited for fun.
Nice, good call, Crimson Howling. Oh, that's awesome.
That is awesome. So, kind of like the reason we hadn't talked our usual Saturday Sundays about a topic for the week, and coming out of my game Sunday night, and thinking about my talk about how I organize games Saturday night.
Yeah.
I got thinking about kind of like these two schools of thought for making games: the Sandbox. And it has a lot of names. I called it the Rollercoaster here.
Right.
But basically, it's the game on rails, where you've got the highs, you've got the lows, you've got the tension, you've got the resolution, you've got the we're not done yet. One more drop.
That is if you're lucky and your DM's good. Because that's where the thing is, where people, the con of the roller coaster is, this is on rails and we just have to do the next thing and then the next thing. And there's, I'm like, no, most stories are linear, and like you said, if it's good, then it's a roller coaster where it tick, you ratchet the tension and then down into the valleys. So it's the where people, when they would hear the roller coaster or on rails, a lot of people go nowadays, because they don't like to follow a linear progression. Because if you say that, then they're like, oh yeah, because the story has this part, then this part, then this part, where otherwise, if it's just Sandbox, what do you do now? Depending on your players.
I don't know. What do you want to do? And that's like the big con to the Sandbox, is that sense of like, okay, we've hit a spot. What should we do now? And if there's not a really good hook to get the players to go on to another thing, then you have that stall out factor. And I think a lot of campaigns that are run by amazing people hit that moment where the players don't know what to do. And the minute a player goes home on Friday without a sense of what's going to happen the next Friday, you lose a probability point from them coming back on Friday.
Right. Yeah.
You want them. Your players should be spending at least as much time away from the table as at it, thinking about the game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's how you know you're doing it right.
Ideally. But although it's weird too, because sometimes you find a Sandbox game, or you think it's a Sandbox, and you start to realize, oh, this has been on rails the whole time.
Right. Well, so this is what I've said before, is it's the it's it's the serving it up, the way you serve it up. You're like, all right, to progress the story, they've got to meet these orcs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you're like, oh, well, you come to a fork in the road. You want to go left or you want to go right? We want to go right. They go right, and you're like, oh, look, there's the orcs. If they had gone left, oh, look, there's the orcs, which is the illusion of choice, but it's how sparingly you use that spice. If everything you make is curry, here's curry, here's more curry, people are going to be like, it'd be nice if you'd serve something that wasn't curry. So you have to, if you're going to let them be in a sandbox, you either got to give them choices, like multiple choice, so that you can do some prep, or you have to have the type of game that you don't need prep. So
Which, from a design point of view, if you're really clever with it, like if I know that they have to encounter these orcs, you can layer choice with the rails. I swear, God's my witness, there's at least one amusement park ride out there that I've been on where you interact with things on your way in, and then when you get to a certain spot, it presents your choice to you. So everyone has a unique ride because they've layered their own things into it, but they were still on rails the whole time.
Yeah.
I want to say it was a Disney thing, like Journey to the Imagination or something, where you voted as you were riding, and at the very end, you got to see the visage that you had created.
That's pretty sweet.
It is, but it's still, what's clever though is you had limited choices going in, and because they were doing a projection kind of thing, they could just project to just your car the result of your choices, so it did create that unique experience. And you can kind of get away with that if you're good with planning, because they have to meet the orcs, but I'll let them pick. Are they meeting them in the cave they're heading towards to explore? Are they meeting them at a tavern they're going to go visit? Are they meeting them at the brothel they're going to go hang out with?
Yeah.
Are they, like, they're going to have to meet these orcs tonight.
Right.
I'll let them decide the stage where they're going to meet them without realizing that's what they're deciding.
Right.
And then they can still feel like there's a certain, they still have agency.
Right.
And depending on what they pick, I mean, encountering words are hard.
Yes.
Encountering a band of orcs in a cave will be a totally different encounter than having a band of orcs storm into a brothel.
Yes.
Like, that's just, it's different. They're going to get a different experience. They will have done what you wanted and that they'll have met them.
Yeah.
But they get to pick the circumstances of the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like you're saying, it could be a totally different encounter, because it could be that they are, in the brothel, they actually are, intimidated by the halfling matron who has like a 30 in intimidation, going back to what we said earlier. And so the orcs are like, oh, yes, ma'am. No, okay, we'll take it outside, compared to meeting in that cave where it's axes and spears and, mayhem. That's pretty sweet. I like the thoughts of that. So did you have what are your pros for a sandbox then? Do you have a certain set of items that you're like, this is what I like about it?
If you're going to do a sandbox, here's what you should do. Honestly, I don't like sandboxes. And the reason is, I find, like I said earlier, I think way too often they turn into, well, what do you want to do now? I don't know. What do you want to do? And things start to slide down, or worse, the players all go, we've decided that we are going to go do this thing. And then you look at them and you're like, well, it's 8:30. And you're telling me now you want to go do that. This would have been a good thing to tell me last week at 11:45.
Yes.
And I don't like those moments. I don't like saying, well, I guess we're done for the night because you guys have gone completely off script.
Yep.
I had no way of predicting this is the direction you were going to head. So I think the biggest thing I would put in my toolbox if you're going to run a sandbox game is you need to have a player group that you, in session 0, you establish that at the end of every session, they need to spend 20 minutes brainstorming their goal for next session.
Yeah.
So that you have time to go, okay, they said they wanted to go try to get the halfling out of his wedding. That was what they wanted to do next week. Okay, we can work with that.
Yeah.
Because we my wife and I ran a game for a year and a half. We ran like second Sunday of every month, and it was a pretty sandboxy game. They had like some things they were trying to do. There was a paladin who was trying to get knighted. There was a halfling squire who was trying to make sure the paladin got knighted. There was the standard we're going to save the kingdom plot, which, I mean, you always put that one in front of them. I mean, they don't have to go save the kingdom. I mean, they're not that big.
Yep.
And then at one point we introduced the fact that the halfling had been arranged to be married and he had forgotten because the arrangement was made when he was like 6.
Aha.
And he disappeared from the caravan of halflings like when he was 8. And now he's of age, and now they're like sending bounty hunters after him because he needs to come home and get married. And
awesome.
And he used to keep a diary. We'd get the super secret diary every Sunday before we started, and one of them was things to do: polish A's armor, polish own armor, get out of getting married. And the next week was polish A's armor, polish own armor, get out of getting married? Question mark.
Run for the hills.
And then it kind of kept like evolving that way as he got to know his betrothed. It's like, she's not half bad.
I see.
We presented her as he got to that point. We presented her as we've done such a neat job of setting her up as you don't want to be in an arranged marriage. That's a terrible idea. And then we flipped the script and went, except she's actually like settling when she picks you.
Right.
She's coming down a step.
You'd be lucky to have her.
Kind of. So I think that's a big part of it. We have advice here from Crimson to suggest make certain to emphasize the day-to-day survival aspect. That's a really neat way of managing a sandbox.
And that's my take on sandboxes, because I really like sandboxes, and that's what I like to do. But if you're going to play that, you have to have one or more people in the group who just love that kind of thing. Because if you try to put something like that on top of players that are like, man, I don't care how many rations I have, like I'm just gonna say, most groups, those 5 rations have been in your backpack for 25 years. No one ever swaps them out. No one ever says, oh, we stopped for the night, check off some rations, that type of thing. So I really do enjoy those kind of campaigns, and but again, I like low fantasy, gritty, type things. We played in a Harnmaster campaign, and my friend John took a bad cut, got infected, and spent a month in game time being pulled around on a cart while he slowly died of an infection. And so that's my level of grit that I enjoy. So it's a different world. But recently, my most recent game is a sandbox game. But what I do is I try to, either on Thursdays, I try to send them the choices for the week. Here's your 3 contracts, or 3, leads. Which one of these are you, going to go after? Unless, of course, they are set up so that no matter which one they choose, things happen. Like, for instance, they passed over this contract to protect this tomb. There's a tomb on a comet that is part of this star system. They basically buried the guy who found the founder of the system, basically the first explorer there. They buried him in a like titanium vault on this comet. And so then one of the contract was to protect the tomb, and they passed it by. So then the next week I said, oh yeah, as you guys are sitting in the space bar, which is called the Green Mushroom Tavern, and it's in a little settlement called Hope's Gate.
Ooh, I like that.
On this
Clever.
like this Terran moon kind of thing. So anyway, they're sitting at the bar, and I'm like, oh, on the news feed up above, it says, space, basically space orc raiders steal the founder's tomb, blah blah blah. And so they know that they didn't make that choice, and the universe is going on without them, so that their choices have consequences, but yet it's not up to them. They could do what they want. You make your choices. So
yeah, and I like this idea here that Crimson added, that the if they're not in too much into survival, that creates a desire to go after story. And that's a good thing with that sense of you're low on supplies. What are you going to do to get supplies?
Yeah.
And now you have that hook. They're not resting on their laurels in some tavern somewhere where they're just, they've got more gold than they know how to spend. So they could retire, which I would also at some point look at a party and go, okay, you've done the math. You have 4 years worth of gold stockpiled at tavern rates.
Yes.
Are you retiring or are you going to adventure? Because you got to pick one. You want to retire. I got nothing against it. Yeah. You can make new characters. You can bequeath them items. You can become their mentors. But, you can't
can become the NPCs in the next campaign.
Yeah. And I think you're right, too. And this gets into that the pro of the story game, which is that players like to feel agency. They like choices. But they also will settle for losing some if they find the event engaging.
Yes.
Yep. And I'm thinking back to where I started, because I started playing games that were all sandbox. And I think most of us did. We bought our module. It came with a dungeon map and a booklet of things that happened in the dungeon. And then we all went in and we just kind of like, well, which door do you want to kick down? The one on the right or the one on the left? And then we would look. Oh, you kicked on the one on the right. That's room number 7. Yep. Ooh, yeah. 7.
And you take them out.
But I'm thinking that over the years, I don't think it was until we got into the late 80s, 90s that modules consistently had like an opening chapter of, okay, here is the story the players are going to follow that gives them an arch to cover. I want to say it wasn't, even with the 3rd edition, the blue covered really thin dungeons, like the Sunless Citadel, I don't think really was very story based. It had a little bit of a
it was all contained. The story itself was there, and by the time 3 came around, they started like, if you'd like to put this in the world of Faerun, you could set it here. Or they would just say, beyond the moon sea is a place where blah, 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 so you could just kind of write that in wherever you happen to have your world,
And you know what blew my mind? I remember this now. I have it over there. When Curse of Strahd was published in 3.5 as the first reprint of Ravenloft, because back when 3 came out, I was like hand transposing Ravenloft into 3rd edition.
Yeah.
They had the encounter system that they used in 4th edition. And I remember thinking, this is brilliant, because instead of it being a case of kick down this door, go here, kill this thing, it was your party is moving from encounter to encounter. And so there's kind of like this flow chart you follow to go, okay, we're going to go here and do a thing. We're going to go here and do a thing. Okay, now what do you want to do? Let's go down into the castle. Okay. That means if you're going down, your next encounter will be, you come out in a dark hallway, knee deep in water. You see a man shuffling away from you. And you don't do okay, so make here's your map. Which door do you want to go through? One of the 3 on the right or one of the 3 on the left? Yeah. And so you start to move on to the rails while keeping some of that sandboxy feel.
Right. Yeah. It's Yeah, like I said, I do indeed enjoy the open range of the sandbox. I like to give the last sci-fi campaign I ran was using a system I wrote back in the 90s, and it was very realistic. And so, if you got shot, a lot of times, if you didn't have like armor or some kind of, shielding or something going on, most of the time you were pretty much done for the combat. And so it was much more, we want to steal this thing, but we don't really want to get shot at while that's happening. So they would go to extra lengths to not get shot at, and it just made it a lot more fun. It was, coming off the age of Firefly and stuff. So like I said, the crew really tried to not engage when they didn't have to. Yeah, again, system is very determinant on that too. Thursday nights, the mass campaign. It's the first powered by the apocalypse game that Indoor Adventure is running, and he's like, I this is a totally different animal than D&D. He's like, because D&D, it's like moment by moment, you know, really, and then this, and then next, and now, and in stuff, where he's like, it's more like scenes when you, when you're running a powered by the apocalypse. You're like, I want to hit these 3 or 4 things during the night, and everything else is just what happens, and so he's enjoying it, but I want to see how it affects his game mastering as we go along.
Sliding down that with you, just going down that rabbit hole for a moment. I'm doing the same thing with what we've been jokingly called the B team, which was, I ran that one-shot pirate event a couple weeks ago, which was supposed to be my week off. I was going to do Pirates for a week off, and then we were going to come back on with the usual Sunday night game. We had to reschedule. And the Pirates all had such a great time, they want to make a regular game of it.
The danger of a good one shot.
I know. And the joke of whole B team is better than A team because they solved all their problems without combat.
Nice.
They worked they worked the pre-gens, they worked the situations. They stole a pirate ship.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, props to them. And then the player who was the captain of the stolen pirate ship happened to have a second hat. He upgraded from a pirate hat to an admiral hat live. And I'm like, all right, sweet. That works. And but there's another system called it's the second edition of 7th Sea. And it works on the same idea of everything is scripted in scenes. And it's really clever in the sense that when you come in, you don't say, I want to try to sneak past the guards to get upstairs to talk to the princess. You're told you're going into a dramatic scene. How do you intend to purport yourself in this dramatic scene? You might say, I want to use finesse and my ability to smooth talk. Shika roll. Okay, I have scored 3 successes. So 3 times I can say, I'm going to schmooze past that guard. Okay, nice. You're now past the guard. And then later you go, I'm going to use another success to talk the princess into letting me into the room. You're in. There's no like roll to see if you succeed. It's like just keep the story going.
Yeah.
And the game master's job is just to keep all the NPCs reacting to what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, that's got a very dungeon world, very powered by the apocalypse. It's all about what's next. What's next? It always there's you fail, and instead of well, now I kick the door open. You're trying to pick the lock and that fails. Then you go to kicking the door open. And again, once you've got enough experience under your belt, then you just kind of do these things, even in that, like a D&D situation. But so like in Powered by the Apocalypse, a dungeon world, you pick the lock, you fail, something happens. There's like a list of one of these things are going to happen. The guards hear you, the people come, you break your lock picks, it's something dramatic happens. So the story keeps going where it's not like I try again, if there's no immediate threat or whatever. So
which, to be fair, a well-run D&D game is built on the same concept. I think
yes.
Well done Dungeons and Dragons, remember, incorporates these things that have become codified in other systems because they're just good practices. If you fail a lockpick roll, it can't just be, well, let's brainstorm a new plan. It's like, no, you spent half an hour working on that damn lock.
Yep.
There's a consequence.
Yes.
Something has changed. A monster's appeared. A guard has been alerted. I mean, there has to be some consequence for failure. And I think what's neat with 7C and a lot of other systems, when you fail, the dungeon master turns to you and says, okay, so you failed. What happens when you fail?
Yeah.
And they let you hang you by your own petard, you know? And
well,
so that, and then you can't complain.
Well, and it's good. Like, again, all the games that are out there now, and the way this generation of players has been raised is they want the drama. It used to be that board game feeling where you didn't want to do anything because you're like, oh my God, my character. I showed up on Friday night with 6 characters. If I go home Sunday afternoon with 1 alive, I'm so grateful. One survived for next week. Where now it's like, and I'm the same way. I want the campaign's coming to an end. I want to be the dude who like sacrifices himself to save the other crew person that they had a crush on, or their brotherly love, and I want to be the Samwise to their Frodo, and somehow save them by taking a dozen orc arrows and that kind of thing. That people will put their characters in those situations and will appreciate and focus on the drama now, where back in the old days, like pulling teeth, no, I have to do only the smartest thing ever.
Which it's interesting because I think 4th edition tried really hard to find, like, I feel like 4th edition more than 3rd was one that was built around the battle map, the tactical game. You can move here, you can do this, here's how you mark off the area of effect. And I think for a lot of players, they kind of had that moment, even the people who hated 4th stopped and went back and went, but I really liked that map. I really like that board gamey feel. And they can get that still out of D&D if they know going in.
Yes.
I want my battle maps. I want my tactical challenge. I want to figure out how I'm going to make a character that can do at 4th level over 30 points of damage to a single monster.
Yes.
And Jeremy, I still hate you for that.
Yes. Yeah, I forget what my buddy Dave, it was 109 points of damage somehow from his paladin. Yeah, it was just ridiculous, and the thing is that again, the battle map type play lends itself to both scenarios, really, to the sandbox and to like a roller coaster, because the challenge of flapping down the battle map, that's depending on the player, that's either the ka-chink 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 up to the top, or as they go down the slope, because that's what they're waiting for. So again, it depends on your players, but battle map play is definitely we went through this period in 2nd edition where, depending on where we were and who we were playing with, it was did we use miniatures or didn't we? It was theater of the mind or miniatures. And what really was interesting is we would get doing one for a while or a campaign, And then when we went to do the next one, we would forget, how did we ever do this with, how do we do this without miniatures? Or how do we do this with miniatures again? Oh man, that's a pain in the ass.
I was gonna say, yeah, whatever you thought you were supposed to be doing halfway through that campaign, you're like, why did we agree to do it this way? And you know what's blowing my mind? I liked Roll20. We talked about it earlier as being a little bit heavy. There is like this huge push right now coming up of virtual game spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like really on the fence because I love the idea, especially since I've moved into streaming as a major platform now. And so as a content creator, I love the idea of making a visual and having my players drop their little minis in there and be able to put up for everybody, like, check this out. You can see where she is. You can see where she's sneaking. And then the part of me's like, I'm so worried about getting caught on the, ooh, that's 1 foot outside of your range. Darn. Kind of thing. Like, I like using my jam boards, just my quick whiteboard to go, okay, here's where you are, here's where they are, here's where they are. You can get from here to here this turn.
All right.
Well, how far is that? I don't know, but you can
how
get
far
to
can
here.
you move? Yeah. How far can you move? That's how far it is.
Yes. Well, I have a bonus fee that lets me move, double my distance. Okay, legit. You can get there this turn.
Yes.
Nobody else can, but you have the feet. I'm not going to take the feet away from you.
Yep.
But
yeah. Real quick, going back to the talking about the drama type stuff and putting yourself in situations. I was playing in, what the heck was it called? Adventurers League is the D&D version of it, but Pathfinder had Pathfinder Society. I was playing in Pathfinder Society back in 3.5, pre-4 and whatnot. So I was playing in Pathfinder Society, and the DM that I kept ending up at their table was a min-max, optimizer. Your character's not optimized. And I would do things, and he would be like, he would just stop and look at me like a second head popped up and was like, literally I was a dwarven ranger. And I think I had a muzzle loader or blunderbuss.
yeah.
I had I had the great axe and a blunderbuss. I was a dwarven hunter, type character. And I remember that that the sorceress fell into this pit with some kind of ooze or something. And I just said, oh, my dwarf leaps in with his battle axe, to fight this ooze. And he's like, he just stopped. Like, what huh? You do what? And I'm like, the sorceress is down there. I'm gonna save her. I'm gonna jump in, blah blah. I was a gunslinger. I was a Pathfinder gunslinger, dwarven gunslinger. That's why, because I was like, well, don't I get grit points for jumping in there? And putting myself in harm's way, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, no, that's just dumb. And I'm like, well, wait. Look, it says here in Gunslinger, Anyway, but yeah, so not to derail us, but that popped into my head that, speaking of, putting yourself in those situations, because nowadays players want the drama. They want the feels. They want all that stuff. It's not... To go back to last week's, instead of the DM being like, my precious story, now it used to be my precious character. I have survived, Todd's dungeons of death for 7 levels. I don't want Blackleaf to die. Don't die, Blackleaf. It's just nowadays a lot of players are like, oh, if I can go out, like I was saying, dramatically or something, they're like, that's awesome. Because I think a lot of players nowadays too are way more into what is my next character? As a DM back in the old days, I used to hate those people in my campaigns. They'd be like, 4 sessions as the wizard. Can I be a half orc now? And I'm like, what are you going to do with your wizard? Man, I don't know. I don't want to play that anymore. It used to be a thing where those were problem players.
I was that problem player.
Yeah, yeah.
I had so many Shadowrun characters. I actually, in hindsight, I wish I had stopped playing RPGs.
Mm,
I wish I had sat my parents down and said, "You need to buy me a laptop. I know they cost a small fortune right now,
mm,
and when I go play D&D with my friends on a Friday night, because we used to do in high school, we would get together on a Friday night at someone's house, and we would be there until Saturday morning. Um, we had figured out one house was the one we liked to go to because the mother of the gentleman whose house we were at was so impressed with our
mm.
behavior that she would provide all of our refreshments for the night. Because the first
Yep.
time we did it, like we put all the pizza boxes together in a stack. We went up, we got the vacuum cleaner to vacuum the basement after as we were getting ready to leave. We wiped, we cleaned up anything that had spilled. And she's like, "You boys are amazing. You can come over here anytime." And every time after that, she had the pizza, she had the ice cream, she had the drinks. I
Mhm.
mean, she was like full on catering.
Yeah,
But I should have been writing instead of trying to play.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
every
yeah.
time we sat down to play Shadowrun, I'm like, I got a new character.
Mm.
This time it's a druid. This time it's a decker. This time it's a vampire.
I'm a street shaman.
I have this concept for a physical adept, but she's only 12.
Yep,
And they're like,
exactly.
we're not working with it. At a certain point, like, we can't work with this anymore, dude. And in their defense, there were guys who, like, my buddy Bob, who made a character named Nightlight, was he was the only character ever played.
Mm.
And so he had all the karma of a year and a half, all the experience points of a year and a half of gaming. And here's me with my little new starter character.
Right,
And
right. It does not scale well in that system.
no. That system was really brutal on that. Blaze of Glory when you get tired. I think, okay. I get the whole, I want this character to go out in a blaze of glory to make my new one. My only concern with that as a DM is the frequency with which you are forced to create blaze of glory moments. I also like the idea, like, you get, I figure you get maybe one of those every 12 months. And after that, it's like, okay, this guy just retired.
I think what Crimson's saying is that you could go, you could take your half orc right there, like he's saying, your half orc, and be like, "Oh yes, he died to a poison thing. We resurrected him, and now he's the pixie." you know,
Earth Dawn did that too. Did you ever play Earth Dawn?
I know of Earth Dawn, but I don't remember ever playing
It
it.
was Dungeons and Dragons with the Shadowrun mechanics.
Oh,
So big
that's...
handfuls of D6s.
Yeah.
But they had pixies, and they were actually PCs that were 8 inches tall.
Nice.
They figured out how to mechanically pull that off, which was a hoot.
In 5th edition Shadowrun, you can be pixies, and you are, diminutive, teeny and whatnot.
Well, why did you tell me that?
Oh, because okay. Here's the thing: if you're going to play Shadowrun nowadays, look up it's a Powered by the Apocalypse hack. It's called the Sixth World.
Okay.
It is Shadowrun without the, because Shadowrun is supposed to be blow, plam, black, bzzzt, blasty and fast and go, but the mechanics of it are so much, roll and then the armor and then the duck and the save and the mechanics are so crunchy that it grinds the action to a halt. Well, this Sixth World, like I said, Powered by the Apocalypse engine, is Shadowrun played fast. You can play it very fast, and it's got all the beats and stuff that you'd want to play. I believe, as of the last time I checked, it was still available for free. You could just pick it up and download it and play it. So it's yeah, anyway, but I think that the thing with the linear story, the on rails story, the pros that the things that I like about it is, if you have players that want to progress through a story and are very story oriented individuals, it's it's better for them to be like, okay, cliffhanger, and we're going to pick up next week right there at the ticket because we ratcheted up, or you have those 1 or 2 sessions of building the tension where they're looking for the monk who was in the red robes, and why did they do this, and what are the secret cults up to, and you get all that ticket, and then cliffhanger, as you open the doors to the temple, you see the red-robed monk amongst the cultists, and that's where we pick up next week. And they're like,
I do like doing that to my players because I do have a couple of new D&D players in my Sunday group. And when I say that's where we're going to pick up next week, there's always silence followed by, wow, okay, because they were like, we action, and it's like, oh no, there's a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to resolve this combat and then hit your save point and go, well, that was satisfying, I'm going to walk away from the computer now. No. You are forced into a save point at the cliffhanger moment, and you have to get up.
Yes. And 2, that leads into the 400 texts flying all week, and they're spending as much time talking about the game as they spent playing it, because you have the that tension going, and they're like, oh, we want to know, so.
Yep. Those are the best. I think one of the tricks I found, because I think I was pretty successful, I like to think I've been successful with my Sunday night game so far, which the first 2 sessions were roller coasters. This current game, I'm struggling because I forget how much more work a sandbox takes. And my sandbox is made. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Everybody has a place that they fit in town. There's a central story arc that they're discovering.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're going to resolve before they move on. And this is going to lead into Curse of Strahd. I've made that final decision. I'm going to run it with this group. And we're going to see what happens. Well, I've always run Curse of Strahd with a very serious, we're going after Strahd. This is a big, important, and I often joke, I love this group. This is an amazing group of players. We play on Sunday nights. But I had expected something HP Lovecraftian, and I got Ghostbusters.
Yes.
And I've adjusted, but I love it. I love running with them because I love the just kind of that irreverence to the horror. They're scared, but they're like, Ash scared.
Right.
Right. Let's get it. And I adore that with the group. But so for this session, it's more sandboxy. And what I was doing before was every session had an end target. They could kind of do whatever they wanted for the session as long as they got to this exposition. So as a DM, it was, I have 4 hours to steer them into learning that there's a ritual site under the old manor house. Next session, I have 4 hours to steer them into learning the town elder council is keeping secret how they've been rigging the elections.
And how did you feel, or what happened when they didn't get there?
They never didn't get there.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I was pretty good. The problem we ran into, the worst situation we were in, was the session before the last session of our first game. So they've been discovering all these bits kind of on their own, exploring here. The one session was like, the zombies are attacking the smithy. Well, that's a 3-hour event. You're really not going to go defend the smithy. I mean, maybe you don't defend it because you're a jerk, but how do you not defend the smithy? So you have to go there. But there was one where it's like, this whole session is exposition. So I created, I had them do quantum leaps. And it was entirely role play based. They really couldn't change the outcome of the scene.
Yeah.
But they all had the opportunity to role play within the scene and see how they might affect everyone else. The guy who was volunteering to sacrifice himself for the good of the town so that there could be a human sacrifice for the harvest.
Yeah.
They could decide if they were going to try and talk him out of it or not.
Right.
He was going to go do it. They were going to leap out of there before they could stop him.
Yeah.
But they at least had the choice of, how do we feel about this? Are we okay with this? This is ritual human sacrifice. We should be kind of down on it. But it's going to feed hundreds of people, kind of up on it.
A sacrifice of the one, or
Yes.
the good of the many is worth the however it works.
Yes,
out,
the needs
Star
of the
Trek
many
says.
outweigh the needs of the one.
Thank you.
No problem. And that becomes that, and that was like the goal. And then we get to the end, and I'm like, okay, you guys have a choice now. And that's, I feel like, somewhat justified, because after 5 sessions, it was, all right, you have been riding this roller coaster. What do you want to do now? You've gotten to the spot where you found out the zombie lord has a case. The townspeople have a case. They're obviously at odds with each other. What side do you take, and what do you do now that you've taken it?
Yeah.
I need to know by Saturday so I can prep the events around your choice.
Exactly.
Go.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's like, if you're going to do a roller coaster, you do have to give the players as many points. You have to be very precise. Like, this is a place the players have a clear choice between some options to keep that agency up.
Yes. Do we go into a loop-de-loop or a corkscrew? You know, one direction or another. Generally, what I would do a lot of times when I would run more Rails games, I would generally, the Rails would be there, but I would then show them, you know, if they didn't want to go in a direction, you know, if they didn't want to go up the loop, I would show them what would happen when they didn't go up the loop. Like, oh yeah, well, you hear rumor that the orphanage burned down because you didn't go to the orphanage, you know, and not in a way that was like, you know, you did this, you know. It was more like, this is what happened.
Excuse me, sir, would you like to buy a flower?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to. Girl, what are you doing here? Well, the orphanage burned down and now I'm raising funds.
Yeah, exactly. Streets.
Okay, speaking of which, rabbit hole.
Yep.
If your players want to have morality in a game that you sometimes wonder, how do you balance it? Don't punish them.
Yes.
I made the mistake once in a Shadowrun game of saying, let's try not to kill everybody. And for the next 3 hours, the guy running it didn't let anybody just die. Everyone we shot died in a way that their wallet fell open and splayed out the 1980s version of that accordion of photographs of all of their children.
Yes.
And he kept this up for like 3 hours. I'm like, dude, okay, I get it. We're bad people. We do bad things. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Have we done any cons on either of them?
We've kind of flirted with a lot of the cons. We talked about like how Sandbox games can sometimes hit that wall of what next. And then the biggest con with even with a well done roller coaster is that your players leave going, well, that was fun, but I don't know why I was there.
The Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, what's the first one?
Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark thing, where, you know, there is essays out there that Indiana Jones actually had if he had not been there, the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah.
That's that same sort of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. So used to play with this one guy, and his rails, his plot points and his rails were so unbendable that we as players would literally try to jump track just to, like, you know, get out of it, and he would literally go, no, there's an invisible wall, You know, there's just boom, boom, you bounce off, boom, you bounce off, boom,
Now,
you know.
and you know, the other one to that, I had a buddy, good friend, friend since high school, nice guy. Love him to death, have loved him as a friend. It hurts me to say this. Horrible game master. And the reason I say that is we love Shadowrun, so he would run Shadowruns. But he would put it in his brain, here's the job, here's how you do the job. I'm not going to tell you how to do the job. So your job is to figure out my solution to the job and execute it. And one of my favorite quotes, because we used to keep legal pads of quotes from the game, was as a rigger, so the guy who drives the car going, I just spent a $25,000 guided missile on a job that pays $10,000.
Right. Yep.
Because we had gone so far away from success in this mission, we were like throwing everything at trying to figure out how to fix our mistakes to get to a win.
Right.
And it was like, I mean, nice guy, but that's how he ran his rail games. He wanted it to be a sandbox where you had choice, but he wouldn't let you have choice, which is another big risk of a sandbox. Or the rails.
That's kind of a Rails situation, I think, because you have to follow the plot line and end up where they want you.
And if you don't, you fail. So that's almost like I don't even know what you call that.
Yeah, if you try to leave the rails, it's over. Game over. The car has flown off the roller coaster, and obviously, if you're not dead, well, you have to go to a different roller coaster and start over.
Free to fail.
So there are two games. There's a bunch of games that I use as these example, but two games in particular over the years that made me it just grind my teeth. One was Mech Commander. It was a computer game, and it was set up in such a way that the people who designed it, the developers, their thing was you can only succeed in this way. There's only one way to finish this mission. You know, if this Mad Cat mech doesn't get to this peninsula where it can just barely hit this radar station with the thing, you're going to fail this mission 1,000 times. That game is one of mine where I'm like, that makes me just, like I said, grind my teeth. The other was the very first Hitman game. The very first Hitman game was one of those that if you didn't do it the way they wanted you to do it, you failed the mission. And that used to make me crazy, because I remember this one mission, couldn't figure out what the combo or code was, and I remember finally walking up to the restaurant where these two mob bosses were meeting and just pulling guns, killing the guards, kicking in the door, and just wasting everyone in the restaurant, you know, because I just was like so frustrated. I cannot stand when there's only one way, you know.
Well, and that harks back. I remember when Hitman being like that Well, okay, so here's the thing, though. Hitman was taking its cues from the earlier adventures games, like Bard's Quest and King's Quest, where
Zork,
where the whole game was, I've discovered a door. The door has a keyhole. I need to find the key. The key is owned by a mouse. I can't get the mouse until I get the cheese. I need to find the cheese. The pretty tavern girl has the cheese, but she won't give me the cheese until I have repaired the well. And it created this how do I figure out what to pick up, what to put down to go A to B? And I think Hitman 1 probably was one of the last games to try that model before they kind of all went, people don't like this that much. But it's easy to code when you have A, B happens. B can't happen until they find A. Yep. So now how do we give them A? Well, they can't have A until they've done Q.
Right.
And then they follow a story.
Yes. Yes.
And that's it's easy to code.
Right.
So I can understand why in the 80s and 90s, that was the way you made video games.
Yep. And so like I said, that was one of the things that really like turned me off to that style, that linear story. I think really those kind of things are what led me to be more of a sandboxy person rather than a linear story. I too, though, like I said, there's breadcrumbs in my sandbox that you can follow, but you don't have to follow. But the spice worms are going to do what the spice worms do. So the world is still going to be doing what it does. It's up to you to follow up or not. And I had a DM who was really good about this, but he was also kind of how to put this. Boy, I hope none of my old players ever listen to these podcasts. He would torture us. He would let you do what you wanted to do, and he would passive aggressively hold it in, and just all right, if that's what you guys want to do. Like, he let one player for 3 hours, like an entire session, climb down a shaft, climb down another shaft, pick up an iron ingot, climb up the shaft, drop off the ingot, and make, like, have him make rolls like every so many feet and whatever. And he was doing this, and the rest of us are at the table, like, because the guy was a brand new player. So he didn't know. He was like, oh, well, I get to roll, and I get to roll some more. And so he thought he was having a great time. The rest of us were like, what is happening? Why are you letting this happen? So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a style of play, but that same DM was the DM that I really wrapped my head around. The world turns. The world is still happening. The players, you can lay down the story, but the players have agency. If they are not going to pick up that ball, someone else is going to kick the ball.
Yes.
So
well, and that creates the agency. In many ways, not making a choice, making no choice is having made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for a lot of well done stories and games and campaigns, the players are always, I think this is going to sound weird, if the players are ever comfortable, you're doing it wrong, because drama is driven by tension. The players should always feel like they have too many choices, none of which are clearly the best.
Right.
Because the minute they have a clear best choice, the game grinds to a stop.
Yeah.
And I've totally off D&D for a second, but I've had that happen with a lot of the Japanese style RPGs, where I've hit a spot where I have found the perfect combo for every combat.
Yeah.
And outside of a boss battle, I don't do anything except run my combo.
Right.
And so since I'm not making choices, I'm not really playing the game, and I'm bored.
Yeah.
I should always be going, what do I think is going to be better here or here? And so from a story point of view, if the players know we're always going to do this because it always gets the most return, they're eventually going to get bored with it.
Right.
So they should always be going, well, we can go to that cave, or we can set up shop in a keep, or we can start our own gang and see if we can break into this. Which is what my current Sunday night game is thinking about trying to do. And I didn't really plan for them to start a criminal syndicate. I respect it.
Yep.
But a little part of me is like, I don't think you guys have enough people to start a gang. I mean, we're talking like dozens of people per gang right now. I'm like, maybe you want to take over one? But
fireball.
Yeah.
Fireball.
Well, that's the other caution. If you run a game that's in a relatively magic low world, be aware of what mages can do. Because there is a certain, like, oh crap factor.
Yeah, the one of my favorite systems of all time is indeed Harn, and one of the things that I really like about Harn or Harn Master is magic is low key, but it's flippin' magic. So like if basically if you use something like magic missile or like a produce flame, that flame just ignores armor. It because it's magic. It just you touch someone with it and they don't get the I've got plate mail. No, this is like ghost touch or whatever. It just goes straight through your armor to hit you because it's magic. And so yes, you can definitely if you are stuck, if you are a band of humans stuck in the Underdark, the guy who can cast the light spell is God. you know, it's the that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah.
We've got a pretty good collection of stuff here on sandboxes versus roller coasters. And it's neat too. I didn't plan this, but it's
Yeah.
neat that you've been kind of the advocate for like, throw them out in the world and see what happens. And I'm over here going, I like having a clear plot. I like having some story elements. Give them a couple of choices so they feel engaged, and on to the next story element. Which kind of does a nice job of showing there's really no wrong way to do it as long as everyone at the table's having a good time.
Yes.
Even looking at like I was rereading when I was supposed to be grading papers today. I was rereading Curse of Strahd. I my co-working stream I had written as my activity for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grading quizzes, and then like I'm not grading quizzes. Personal business. It amazes me how much they've taken a game that was kind of on rails. Like if you read the original Ravenloft, yes, it's a castle go explore, but it was very railed. You're going to go here. He's going to do this. You're going to find out you got to kill him, and then you're going to go kill him.
You're going to spend the night in the church. The wolves are going to come.
Yeah. And they really sandbox the crap out of it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's the whole Strahdville.
Yeah.
Go figure out what you want to do in Strahdville. And I'm kind of starting to get geeked about running it. But that's even there. We're starting to see more and more of that, like that fusion of that sandbox and the roller coaster to say, look, there's a lot of good stuff here. You want your players to come away from every session dying to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. If there's if there's not some discords flying around or whatever, unless here's an example. Unless you're running what people call a beer and pretzels game. Beer and pretzels game is the show up, play, go home. It's the game that you come, you do your thing, you walk away from. It's kind of more of an old school feel, where what map are we on tonight? What is the supposed reason we're in the dungeon to kick down the door?
It's a true one shot.
Yeah,
literally.
But even if it's that's the campaign of it. The campaign is just beer and pretzels. We get together every week, and the four of you idiots kick down doors and beat up monsters, and everybody's happy with that. Then that is the game. It doesn't have to have bells and whistles, but those are hard to do nowadays because most players want to make a character, and like I was saying earlier, they want the feels, and I have to say I'm in the same boat. I want to get out there and I want to be like, no, the beginning of the opening of the Gamers, you were at the monastery and such's sister was dead. No, we weren't. We were in the town hall and it was the elf's brother who was dead. No. That kind of thing.
Yeah, as long as you're having a good time, I have nothing against people whose whole game is the publishers have put out a monster that's CR5. We are a party. We are a level 5 party. There are 4 of us. We want to see if we can kill it. And we need some bozo to be in charge of the monster. And that's all we want you to do, Mr. DM. You roll the dice for the monster, we roll the dice for the players, and we see if we can beat WotC's CR5 monster.
Next thing. Next level. Give it to me.
Oh, and welcome, Isachita. Glad to have you here. We are actually on the back end of our show. I think we're doing really well. We had a really good show today. But we're coming up on 6:30, which means we each have people to get home to and get some dinner because happy hour is winding down. They're going to start charging us full price for the drinks, which means it's time to get out of here. And that's how
you need an outro.
You know you're in good company when someone says last call for happy hour bonuses, and someone at the bar goes, "All right, I'm buying everybody 2." Whatever they're having, give them 2 of them. You're like, that's the dude, because the drinks go up a lot when happy hour is over.
And then you sit there sipping those until like 8 o'clock.
Damn straight. I mean, what the heck? Alcohol doesn't go bad that fast. Or ever.
So yeah, pros and cons. Roller coasters or being on rails versus tromping around in a sandbox. I think we've really hit some key points.
Yeah.
I think that whatever you run, it's always good to have elements of both. Maybe have your main story be the roller coaster, and every time that the roller coaster gets down here in a valley, you let them roam in the sandbox for a little bit, and you play in the sandbox, and you get back in the car and and then you're down in the sandbox for a while, and
there you go. I want to go back very, very before we call it a day. I do want to reference back. I misunderstood something that Crimson brought up about Tailspire, and I want to mention Tailspire by name. It is one of the virtual tabletops that's coming out. It's on Steam. It's still in alpha, I believe.
Okay.
But it's one of those like hyper realistic 3D model, 3D engines. Everything is in there. You put everything down, you pick it up, you move around, and see what happens with it. It's around random. Oh yeah, well this is a good one. We're here since we're wrapping up, we want to invite everybody to come back again. If you enjoyed hanging out today, you can find us as a podcast as Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern, and you can find that anywhere great podcasts are sold. We record live here on twitch.tv/Lantern Noir every Tuesday on or around 5 o'clock at the start of Happy Hour, and wrapping up around 6:30. You can follow me. I'm on the Facebook. So there's a link on my page to that. Great. Where do we find you?
Find me over on Twitter. There is actually a graybeardtavern.com out there, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. But it's fun. You can go there, and all my links are at that. And then or the best place to find me currently is on Twitter, Graybeard Tavern. On the tweets. I try to put out stuff. Trying to get more regular. Like I used to do a thing that was called Muddy's Mayhem Mondays, and it was always snippet quotes from our games. Over the week or over the weekend, you get those little quotes. I've got some of them here, like stool chucking barbarian banger. That and someone always says, well, of course. Stool chucking barbarian banger was the name of my high school, or my garage band in high school. Someone always says that, and so that was always the thing of that. And then on Mondays I would post those, and like for this one, they are a bluegrass metal band. And so I would, shock jock it up a bit and announce the album, and stuff. So I want to get more into doing some bits and bobs on Twitter that are standard. Like last week, I was all about the tips. I was trying to hand out some good bites of wisdom.
Amen to that. Well, that's good. And then your next live stream for a game. When are we gonna? If we need to see you in action, where do we find you?
Thursday nights on I'll be over at Indoor Adventures, and we're playing Masks, and I am playing Cody Johnson. He is the goddess Securitas. The Roman goddess has given him like protection powers, like armor, shield. You know, I got my prop right here. I got my shield for Cody Johnson and his mighty adventures there. He doesn't have a name yet. That's his shtick, is he's trying to find a name. That's where you can find me, GB.
Sweet. And then I'm going to be back tomorrow night. Believe it or not, I'm going to be here starting around 7:30ish. I think we're going to plan half an hour of like pre-show tech work, but we're going to be having session 0 for the Candlekeep Angels, which will be my Candlekeep mysteries. We're going to kick it off like the day it comes out. We're going to be running it. And it still blows my mind that of all the gamers I've been able to corral, I have 3 amazing women who are coming to the table. So I'm going to lean a little bit on that Charlie's Angels vibe as we throw them into their first mystery. And we'll see how that campaign goes. And then you can check both of our schedules anytime you want to come back and follow. If you want to participate, everyone is welcome to a live taping. We love to say that this was recorded in front of a live Twitch audience. Canned applause and everything. If you want to drop us a note, if you want to provide some suggestions for future topics, you have questions you want us to answer on stream, you can always write an email to oldtimertavern@gmail.com. Yep, that was it, oldtimertavern. And we'll happily talk about it on the stream, and we'll see what happens. Gray, do you have a parting thought for everybody before we head on out?
Ooh, yeah. So check your rations, because I'm sure they've gone bad, because nobody checks off their rations when they play, and you've had those same 5 rations in your pack since the campaign began.
And on that note, I will also add that remember, wear your mask. You want advantage on your con save. Keep everybody that you care about safe. From that note, I'm going to send you guys off somewhere. I'm actually going to send you over to Enceladorsaurus, who is playing a game called the Dyson Sphere Program. She is actually slated to join us tomorrow night as one of my Candlekeep Angels. So I'm really geeked, and so we're going to head check her out from here in just a few seconds. Hopefully you had a good time, and we'll catch y'all next time. Till then, stay safe.